In this module, we will be looking at various applications of binary trees. So this is still part of module number 1. So during the previous lectures, we have discussed binary trees. So now we will be looking at some applications of binary trees. One interesting application of binary trees, and that was actually used in real life, was when a team from the College of Engineering before actually used binary trees to model irrigation networks. Okay, so they have and they have a network of irrigation in a farm. So they wanted to do some program that can simulate that to the irrigation network. So in order for them to do that, they needed to have a data structure that will represent the irrigation network in a computer. So they use binary trees. So it's a good reading exercise. So I will be leaving the details of that modeling your reading assignment. So I shared a book section in our class website so that you can read on the details of that project. For today, I want to focus more on heaps and heap sort. So basically, a heap is a complete binary tree. So I think we define what a complete binary tree is. A complete binary tree is a binary tree that has that each node except for the node at the last mode at the last most at the bottommost part of the tree, they are complete. Okay, so um the only nodes that do not have a complete complement of nodes, the only level that don't have a complete complement of nodes are at the bottommost level. At the same time, the elements are at the leftmost side of the tree. What does it mean? Before I can put a node here, I should have node at the leftmost part, at this part of the tree. So before I can put a node here, I should have a complete set here first. So that is a property of complete binary trees. So when we say max heap or minimum heap property, the idea there is that the the root of the tree is greater than the value or less than, if it's a minimum heap, is greater than or less than the value of the two of the root of the two subtrees. So in this diagram, K sub F is greater than K sub L or K sub R. And at the same time, the definition is recursive. Okay, K sub L should be greater than the values of the left and the right hand, and so on. So if we use greater than, then that will be a max heap. If we use less than, that will be a min heap. So if we will not be if it's a max heap or a min heap, just assume that we are talking about maximum heap. Okay, but it's interchangeable naman. So some property, example of a heap is also a heap that's given. In the max heap, the root contains the largest key, or in the min heap, the root contains the smallest key, and that is something that is very important for us later. So given a set of keys, there is more than one assignment of keys to the nodes to form a heap. So it's possible that I can have another heap given this set of nodes, so it's not unique. Number 4, and since we have a complete binary tree, the height of a heap on n nodes is log of n. So that is also an important property. So I think the challenge that we have right now is how do we convert a tree into a heap? Okay. There are many ways. There are ways that are not optimal, like we will do before, and there are more optimal ways. So we will be, of course, use the more optimal way. So the process is called shift up, or it is a bottom up. So we will start down, right to left process in which the smallest subtree of a complete binary tree are converted into heaps, and the subtrees which contain them, and so on. So we start here, and these are heaps. So we don't do anything, and then we do this. So we convert this into a heap. We check if these are heaps. So until we have reached the topmost node. So we start from the bottom. So These are heaps already. So this is already a heap. These are already heaps since they are only one node. They are only single node. Similarly, this one also. This is an almost heap. What do we mean by an almost heap? An almost heap is a binary tree where the left sub-tree is a heap, the right sub-tree is a heap, but the whole tree is not yet a heap. So why is that important for us? Because it's easier, of course, to convert this into a heap when we have an almost heap. So if you will notice that technique is we start below and then we convert each for each level, we convert it into a heap so that we can form almost heaps. So we swap. Basically, that's it. And I will define an algorithm later. So we now have here a heap. So we repeat that in the right side, and we have an almost heap again. So we just repeat the process until we form a heap. The algorithm that I just showed earlier is can be more formally defined with the heapify algorithm. So the heapify algorithm basically converts an almost heap into a heap. So if the input is not an almost heap, then heapify will not work. Okay, so how does heapify work? So we start with the key. So of course the key is the value of the root. Then we assign a pointer at the root. Then we assign a pointer beta to the left hand of this pointer alpha. And while beta is not negative, we assign sigma to be the right hand of alpha. And then this is now what will happen. We will compare the value of the key of that where beta point and the value of the key where sigma point. The larger key should be where beta will always point. So in this, if if this key is bigger than this, then we don't do anything. If beta is already pointing at it. However, if the value here at sigma is greater than the value here, then we will move beta to the other side. Because we want beta to always contain the larger value. Okay? In this case, beta will not move because it already has the larger value between these two keys. What we will do next? What we will do is we will assign if the key of beta, if the value of this is greater than k, then we will assign the key of alpha, so the value here, to contain the value of the key of beta. Because since this is an almost heap, we know that the left sub-tree is a heap, and the largest value is at the root of that tree, and the right sub-tree is also a heap, so the largest value is also at the root of this. And the larger between these two should be the largest value in the whole tree, since we have an almost heap. If the value at the root is larger than this two, then we have a heap. Okay. Since we know that 9 is greater than 8, and 9 is the largest value in the whole heap, in the whole complete binary tree, we will not now put 9 here. Okay, since that should be the root of that binary tree for it to be a heap. And then we will just repeat the process. Alpha will point here, beta will point to the left hand of alpha, and sigma will point to the right hand of alpha. We compare them again. Since the value at sigma is greater than the value of beta will now move here. Okay? And once beta moves here, and since key of beta is greater than 2, the value at alpha will now be the value that will now, so this node will now carry the value from the node where beta is pointing. Okay, so parang na-promote yung node na yon. And then, we put alpha here, and then beta left hand is null, and then we now terminate since beta is already null. Key of alpha, so wherever alpha is pointing last, that is where our key K will, that is where the value 2, which is originally the root, will go. So this will now become 2, and we now have a heap. Okay? So obviously the time complexity of heapify is log n because alpha, beta, and sigma move from one level to another. So at each level, they move one. So the number of steps that alpha, beta, and sigma does at the most is log of n, which is the height of our complete binary tree. One interesting property of a complete binary tree is actually we can represent it using an array. So this one, we have here complete binary tree. If you will notice, by putting the indices at level order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we can store them in an array where the indices represent the indices of the array. So the question may be for us is, how can we be sure that this array represents this binary tree? So for us to be able to be sure of that, we need to be able to determine the basic properties of our binary tree and map it to the properties of the array. For example, in a binary tree, if I have a node, for example, ST, I can easily find the left and the right child node of this node. I know that the left hand is AR and the right hand is SR. Given an array, if I know where ST is, how can I determine where the left hand or the right hand of ST is? Actually, if you will look at the pattern, it's easy to know, to see. Okay? What we will do is we will just multiply the index by 2 for us to get the left hand, and we will multiply the index by 2 and add 1 for us to get the right hand. And that pattern is true for the whole array. So you multiply the index by 2, or EM for example, so we will go to 10, EX. You can actually see that that is the left hand of EM, and we multiply it by 2 plus 1, we will have BH, and we will actually see that that is the right hand. So we can easily generate the left hand and the right hand by just knowing the index of the element in the array. How can we know the parent? So how can I know what node is the parent of BH? In a complete binary tree, it's easy to know. How do we do that in an array? We just divide it by 2 and floor it, and we just compute for the floor of the index over 2. So for example, for BH, we divided by 2, that will be 5. The root is EM. For AR, we divided by 2 ST, so the parent of AR is ST. How do we know if a node is a left or a right node? If it's an even node, then that is a left node. If it is an odd node, then that is a right node. So those properties are summarized here. And if you will remember Heapify earlier, we can actually implement, since we are using a complete binary tree there, we can actually implement it using an array. And instead of getting the left hand and the right hand, we just compute for the indices of the left hand and the right hand, given the rule that we have here. So, well, one application of binary trees and one application of heaps is heap sort. So we have encountered many sorting algorithms already before. We know that for the best sorting algorithm that we have encountered has a time complexity of O of n log n. We also know that for comparison-based sorting, n log n is already the fastest one. So let's look at heap sort and let's look at how this works, and let's look at how this compares to the other sorting algorithms that we have discussed before. So the idea in heap sort is we will maximize the idea of the heap. We will assign the keys that will be sorted to a complete binary tree. We convert it into a heap, and we know that in a heap, the largest key is always at the root. So if we will arrange them in descending order, we use the max heap. We will be arranging them in increasing order, we use the min heap. So For now, we assume that we will be arranging them in descending order. So the root will always contain the largest value. So we easily know what the largest value is. So we now know, we now put it. So that can be, so that can now be outputted. We can now output it. And then we will, what we will do is we will detach the rightmost node at the bottommost level and we put it to the root. So we will now have, we will not have a heap anymore, but we will have an almost heap. So we can use 55 to convert it into a heap. So we will now, so once it is a heap again, we will now be able to get the second largest element, which is the root of the heap again, because we already removed the largest element. So we will just repeat the process until we have sorted the whole tree, the whole array, the elements in descending order. Again, if we want to sort them in increasing order, we just use a min heap. So we have this example. Okay, so we put them in a complete binary tree. We convert them into a heap using heap up. And then the largest element will be we will output the largest element. That we know that that should be the first element of our sorted array in descending order. And then we get the rightmost node at the bottommost level, which is 3. We put it at the root. We will now have an almost heap here. We will be using heapify to convert this into a heap. But the second largest element, or currently the largest element, if you already removed 9, we will now output it. That is the second largest element, and then we will get the rightmost element at the bottommost node. We use heapify again. We output 7, and we just repeat the process until we have the binary tree. Sorry, we have the sorted elements. What's the time complexity? Well, we can actually compute, but looking at this in a native manner, we can see that we have repeated heapify n times. And we know that heapify works log n times. Actually, it's smaller than log n because we have a decreasing number of elements. But as an upper bound, we can use log n. So we did heapify, which is log n, and we did it for n times. So the time complexity is actually n log n. However, we have an additional space complexity. Okay, we have an additional space complexity of having a heap. In any way, the time complexity of heap sort actually compares to the time complexity of the other sorting algorithms that we have used before. Another important application of a complete binary tree is a priority queue. So what is a priority queue? Basically, it's like a queue. So you know, in a queue, the first element that comes in is the first element that comes out. In a priority queue, the idea is the same. However, instead of looking at the time on when they came in, because that is the parameter. The first element that comes in is the first element that comes out. We will have a particular priority key that will serve as the priority. So the element that will have the highest priority is the first element that will come out first. In a normal queue, the priority property is the time. In a priority queue, it's more general, so we can attach a key to an element, and that key will serve as the priority of the element. So the largest element will always be, so when we can do insert, we put elements in the priority queue, and when we do extract, it will return the element and delete the element with the highest priority. So that's the difference of a priority queue and a queue. How do we implement it? We can implement it using an unsorted array. We just insert the latest element at the right side of the array. Okay, so n here, so this is just like a stack. N here just moves to the right as we add elements. So it's easy to add elements. We actually have, it will only take us O of one time. O, constant lang yung time complexity nung pag-add natin ng element kasi sa dulo lang palagi. However, it will take us O of n time if we want to extract an element because we have to look for the largest element in this priority queue. So that's problematic. So that will take us O of n. We can have a sorted array. So in a sorted array, we know that the largest element is always here. So it will. So if we want to extract the largest element or the element with highest priority, it's O of 1. However, since we want to keep we want to keep it sorted, every time we insert an element, we have to look for the right position for that element. And that will take time. That will be O of n. So it's easy to extract it's O of 1. It's hard to insert it's O of n. So medyo opposite siya ng unsorted implementation. If we will be implementing this as a heap, and this will be interesting now, if we want to extract an element, we just extract the root of the heap. That's O of 1. However, just like in heap sort, we will put a new element at the root. We can put the bottommost element, and then we have to do heapify to keep the heap to keep it as a heap. That will be log n. So insertion will actually extraction will actually be log n because it's easy for us to get the top element. However, converting the remaining element into a heap again will take us log n. So it's log n. However, so that's extraction. For insertion, we just add the element at the bottommost node, and then we compare it to its parent. Its value is greater than its parent value. We swap them until we find the correct position of the node that we added. And insertion now will take O of log n time also because the number of swaps depends on the height of the binary tree, which is log n. So at most we will have log n swaps. If from the bottommost node, the node that we inserted goes to the root of our heap. So it's log n also. So if we will implement the priority queue using a heap, we will have log n for insertion and log n for extraction. And it's like a compromise. We have in the sorted implementation, it's easy to insert, it's hard to extract. Sorry, in an unsorted implementation, it's easy to insert, it's hard to extract. In a sorted implementation, it's easy to extract, it's hard to insert. In a heap, we had a compromise. It will take us log n to insert and log n to extract. So I think that should cover module 1 of our lecture. So thank you very much.